Guthers for their presentation. I thought you guys, and of course, wait, I'm not, I'm not finished with the two guys. You know, certainly we appreciate the presentation made by Senator Respicio and Senator Guthers, and of course we had Senator Frank Bloss, and I like his presentation because there's a number attached to it. Yeah. And we're not for asking for something in the future. We're asking for something from the past that is being quantified. So I really like that presentation, Senator Bloss.
And Mr. Chairman, while we're doing accolades, I want to recognize Speaker Wampat for giving all of us that opportunity to make the presentation on behalf of the legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
All of us.
Yeah.
All of us. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. When we broke for lunch so that we could meet with the CODEL, we were on the Commission for Educator Certification, and there was a question with regards to the miscellaneous provision and what did the 6,300 in miscellaneous provision entail. The budget submittal for that miscellaneous expense line item are stipends for the commission members at 7 members and 15 meetings, and so that is, and it'd be $350 per meeting for the commission members. Now, however, while we did budget for this in the budget in the request, there is a provision in the budget bill, just for your note, submitted by the governor, which allows for the commission stipends to be paid out of the operational funds of the agency. So there was a general moratorium on payment of stipends, but the provision in the bill allows the agency or the department to pay it if it's budgeted in their department, and if not, then they can take it out of their operating expense to pay for it. So that is the miscellaneous. There was another request, I think, on a notice that about equipment and computers. The original submittal by the commission was for computers for 2 new staff members, and the budget did not include the funding for those 2 new staff members. In lieu of the 2 staff members, the commission filled the position of the executive director. And so once they filled the executive director position, they had 3 members on the staff, and they were not able to fill the other 2 positions because they picked the executive director in lieu of the 2 clerical positions. And so that's why when the budget was submitted, they wanted the computers for the 2 new individuals, but they're not there because they weren't hired. And so therefore we deducted the request for the equipment for the 2 new positions that will not be hired. And so that is the reason why that line item was reduced. So, Senator and Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the explanation for some of the items that we were requesting information for. This may not, of course, be appropriate maybe here, and you can, advise me in terms of where maybe would be the best place later on throughout the budget packet in which we could address at least, I know you weren't able to fill 2 positions, but the possibility, I'm not sure whether it's on administrative provisions where we allow maybe the hiring of, some individuals based on their caseload, and because it's a certification, normally the certifications would be due either before the beginning of the school year, so there might be a need to have these individuals, at least temporarily, that could help maybe only like twice a year. Usually it would be summertime and then winter time because of the graduations from the university, and they might need that additional help. So
there's a provision in the budget bill in the administrative provisions, you're correct, about the ability to hire seasonal or unclassified or temporary, and perhaps at that time you may want to add that to take care of the seasonal work nature of this office. So when we get to that, we'll remind you, and so that you may be
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions on the certification board? If not, we'll now proceed to Chapter 2, Part 4, the University of Guam. The appropriations to the University of Guam contained in Section 1 Section 1 outlines the different appropriations. There's the general fund appropriation for operations, and that amount is being proposed at $27,934,016 from the general fund to the University of Guam for fiscal year 2010. And that's their general operational expenses or appropriation. Part of that, of course, then is added to their other sources of revenue. They have tuition revenue that they also generate. That assists in the University of Guam's master plan as well as the payment of their bond issue. They have grants and grants and aid. The total budget for the University of Guam operating budget, inclusive of all federal grants that they receive, is about almost very close to $70 million. So $27 million is the local contribution to the operations of the University of Guam. And that is an increase over from the base operating budget. This is about a $700,000 increase from their last year's base operating budget. The second section is Section B, and the University of Guam submitted a request for different initiatives that they wanted to implement as part of the planning for the growth that they were seeing. Now, they requested about, I think, 3 different programs, about $4 million total. We were not able to fund that given the revenues that we had, but at the hearing and the discussions with the University of Guam officials, we had indicated that we would fund and could fund approximately $1.2 million of their growth initiative. And one of the areas that they pointed out on their growth initiative that they really needed was the area of nursing, that they had actually had to delay enrollment into the nursing program because they didn't have the instructors and so forth. So they asked us to consider their nursing program, and this growth initiative provides $200,000 of that for the nursing program. This is in line with their recent expansion on their capital facilities. As you know, they've just broke ground on additional classrooms and meeting space for the nursing school at the University of Guam. Senator Adam.
Maybe if you can just clarify on that Section 1B, it specifies there on line 12 that the nursing school shall receive no less than $200,000. And then, of course, in Section 4, in page 23 there, under the Section 2,
Yes.
it also specifies that the school, the nurse training program shall receive no less than $500,000. So,
Right.
so then $700,000 minimum is being guaranteed for the School of Nursing. Then, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
The growth initiative is for additional staffing and supplies and materials for the new classrooms and meeting rooms that they're building.
Okay. All right.
The other one is for the nursing scholarships.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, okay. Any other questions? Senator Guthertz, University of Guam, Section 1.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate it if you could just share with us the substance of your interaction with university leadership on this this figure. How did they react to it? What is their feelings about it? I think it would be valuable for us to know.
Yes. We met with the president of the University of Guam. Of course, we had the public hearing where they made the presentation. They were concerned about the proposal by the administration. The proposal by the administration gave them a $27,141,016 as the official request from the general fund, and they felt that that was inadequate because there was no other appropriation for any other initiatives that the University of Guam wanted. And so it would have been a reduction in their base budget. We went through, based upon the hearing, and we placed and talked to them about increasing that amount plus funding some of the growth initiatives. And they indicated they were very pleased with the budget that we presented to them with regards to their needs and their requests. The increase from the general fund for their base budget goes from 27,148 to what you see here of 27,943. So a little over 700,000 in the base appropriation. The administration's request did not include any funding for the growth initiatives, and so we provided 1.2 million of the growth initiatives that they were asking for. For that, the total amount they asked for their growth initiative is 2.4 million. So we fund almost half of their request, and that's additional money that they've never had before. In addition to that, of course, the University of Guam, we budgeted about $600,000 in capital equipment for the University of Guam as part of their regular request. And they, when we met with them, they had a better opportunity to review their ARA funding. So in their ARA funding, they looked at the projects that they were going to fund out of the general fund appropriation we made to them on the capital equipment. So when we compared what's eligible for ARA and what they had budgeted for under capital equipment, they were able to determine that the projects and the equipment under capital equipment and infrastructure was able to be used and funded by ARA. So we kept that 600,000 in their base budget, which would have gone through to capital equipment, and so now they have that again available on top of what we had increased. So in effect, the University of Guam's budget increased by about 1.3 million under base because of the capital equipment that's now available for them because ARA's paying for it, plus the $780,000 we gave them, plus the 1.2 million for their growth initiatives. And based on this, they were very satisfied and very pleased with the budget that is being presented here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's really good news for the university, and I know the university will use those funds to really support the community. So that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on University of Guam Section 1? Okay. Section 2, University of Guam for scholarships and training programs. The amount is 2.610670, and this includes, again, a additional appropriation for the nursing scholarship program. That we put in 500,000, and that's a bump from their normal grants that they currently fund under the nursing scholarship. So there's additional nursing scholarships made available. So, Speaker Wampat, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I know I had handed out the copy of it, but I needed to make some correction. I'm not I'm putting everything the way you have it, but if you look on page 23 on line 5, and on the amendment where it starts out that the president of the University of Guam shall allocate this appropriation in order to fund, the scholarships. But then what I'm including here is the subject to, if you notice in your amendment, because that is already codified, and I wanted to make sure that if we actually include that in lines 5, the subject to section 15113 of 17 GCA chapter 15. And then when you go, and then where it says not more than 10% of the total appropriation herein shall be used for administrative costs. What the university decided to do is that they have transferred all of the scholarships under one office now, but we have only one program which actually charges has pulled out 21% for one program, one scholarship program, and all the others operate with 10%. So we're bringing everyone online at the 10%, and we have this dialogue with them. And then what the monies they can use, the extra monies, is to put it into then the scholarships, and that's why you'll notice that I'm leaving in the RTC, the Regent scholarships, and the Marine Lab. These are not mandated by law. This was actually created by the regents, and but we normally fund those that have been mandated. And then when you read towards the end of that paragraph, where it says to fund other mandated scholarships, it's just to remove the word mandated. So that means then that these other scholarships that they want to give, the savings that they'll make as well from 21 to 10% for administrative costs, those monies now can go to support and give out more scholarships to their students. So that's the amendment.
On the amendment, Senator Ada?
Well, I do have a question about the deletion of the eligibility of the ROTC program from receiving scholarship money. Now, first of all, I thought that the ROTC scholarships were federally funded to begin with.
Senator Wampat, would you yield to that question? Speaker Wampat, I'm sorry.
As a matter of fact, yes, I've been having this dialogue with them, and no, the programs that were created are not federally funded. These are all locally funded. That means because in the past they used to be just lump sums, and we didn't give a specific amount for a specific scholarship, so that gave them the flexibility just to use the monies and put them wherever they saw.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would actually object to the deletion of the ROTC program participants from being eligible for scholarship funding. The ROTC program has been certainly a very good program for creating leaders and management type personnel who some of them go on active duty, others a lot of them stay on island and become officers in the Guam Guard. And certainly, I think that to delete that particular program from being able to receive scholarship funds is something that I certainly would object to vehemently. So I'm sure other speakers who want to, there may be other speakers who want to discuss the amendment that's been made, but I would like at some point, Mr. Chairman, to make an amendment to the amendment wherein we leave the ROTC program as being eligible for the scholarship.
So, Senator Ada, it would be improper, not improper, improper motion at this time for you to make that amendment.
It'd be appropriate.
It would be appropriate.
So then I would like to make an amendment to the amendment.
Yes.
To unstrike Reserve Officer Training Corps and keep that as being eligible to receive scholarship money.
Okay.
One moment, may I please? I know I said I had given you out the original amendment, but I'm giving you now the corrected ones where they are all back in.
Oh.
Yes.
So then I'll withdraw my amendment.
You're right.
All right.
That's why I thought I'll go ahead and clarify that.
Okay.
So they are passing it out now to show that those three
On the, if I
that
just
were
real quick.
the three that
Madam
were originally
Speaker?
stricken.
Yes, Senator Ada, you are withdrawing your amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Any objection to that?
No objection.
No objections. All right.
Can I just let the members know at least because in the meetings that I've had and some of the reasons that they've given us and some of the questions we asked in terms of qualifications, residency requirement, and all of that, and whether there are federal funds, and there are none. The Marine Lab Graduate Assistance Program, these are all non-resident students, and it is a graduate program. And they have indicated that some of these students who, although they're coming elsewhere, some of them, when they do return, they return and just stay like within the region. So that means in one of the other islands closest to Guam, not necessarily Guam, but somewhere in the region. So, and I just thought you might want to have that information. So anyway, so those programs will be in. The monies then will be that's available then as a result of the reduction of the administrative costs. And also, and I did have this discussion with them as well, because they were actually budgeting it at 12
Madam Speaker,
recipients.
if I may just interrupt. The amendment that was passed, accepted, and under discussion was the ones that had those 3 different scholarship programs stricken out. Now, my understanding is, am I correct in saying that you wanted to withdraw that one because that's not the one you wanted to present?
You're right, yes.
And you wanted, okay.
You're right. So
All
that
right,
means they're
so
all
just-
back in.
All right, so just to clarify,
Okay.
the amendment by Speaker Wampat is being withdrawn, is requested to be withdrawn, which would strike those 3 lines out, and there is no objection to that amendment, or to the withdrawing that. Now, you're not retyping it, though.
Yes, actually, it went out already.
Okay.
Did you get another copy?
I haven't got it yet.
Yeah.
No, the new one. Yes. Sahara.
Yeah,
Okay, just a short recess while we get the
Okay.
right copies to the members' hands. Okay. Committee of the Whole is back in session. The amendment by Senator Wampat, the corrected amendment, has been passed out. Senator Wampat, once again, we'll recognize you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So what you see then is, you're right, is that I went ahead and put them all back in. I would like to make sure, first of all, is that you do have all these background information that I, too, was able to get when I met with the university officials. The one thing that I found out that you all need to understand is that everything above these are all mandated by law. These 3 scholarships, however, are not mandated by law, and they're created by the regions. Now, the other thing you need to know as well, in all our other scholarships, there are certain requirements in terms of payback and service. None of these 3 is there a service payback at all, where all the other programs, we used to have, one in 2 years, for a 2-year service for 4 years, and then throughout the years we started to correct it, and then we made it 1-to-1. In this particular case, there's none, okay? So it just means keeping a certain grade point average is all that is required for those 3. So what I've done, and if you read further on in the amendment, of course, where it says there that the fund will be distributed first of all to those that are mandated, and then those that are not, whatever they have remaining, the balance, that can go into these other non-mandated scholarships.
Thank you very much, Senator Rector. Okay. Senator Rector?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After discussion with the mover of this amendment, I would like to pose an amendment to the amendment, which is to go back and strike the Reserve Officer Training Corps from the amendment.
All right. There's a motion then by Senator Rector to amend the amendment presented by Speaker Wampat to strike Reserve Officer Training Corps. Senator Cowell, I see your hand.
If I could speak on my amendment
okay.
first. Yeah, while we discussed the military long and hard on Guam and the benefits it has been for our island, or the detriments to our island, that's for another time and place. This isn't the discussion here. What the discussion we're talking about is this program. The only requirement to get into this program, is my understanding, is that you have a decent GPA. They don't have to join the military, but they might join the military. They don't have to give anything back to the people of Guam, but they might give something back to the people of Guam. But at the end of the day, with it, I can't see the taxpayers of Guam subsidizing a training program for the U.S. military. That just makes no sense to me at all. We have this gigantic military buildup coming, and we are trying everything possible from every angle possible to make sure that the people of Guam don't subsidize the military buildup. Why would we do it at our university? I think the military can afford to train their own people, and I think the military can afford to fund an ROTC program at UOG, not the taxpayers of Guam. Henceforth, my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Rector. Senator Calvo and then Senator Uggan.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I object to the amendment proffered about deleting Reserve Officers Training Corps. Again, that was some of the rationale for, again, the withdrawal of the First Amendment and the placement of the Second Amendment. It's kind of ironic that the first cut we're going to be doing in this budget is the elimination of an education program. Whatever you want to call ROTC, it's about education. It's about leadership training. I must remind the Senator that a lot of these rules in regards to those programs, they may not become it from a legislative standpoint, but administratively, these determinations can be made within the University of Guam, whether it's to be a payback or some other type of requirement. That can be done administratively. It's ironic we're having the first admiral, flag officer in the U.S. Navy, again soon in the next few months, of Chamorro descent. This is education. This is leadership training. Aside from education and leadership training, it's about a career. The earlier senator that made this amendment stated that there's going to be lots of military investment into this island. There'll be a movement of military officers and soldiers, sailors, and airmen into this island. Wouldn't it be great if one of our local people can participate in a program, graduate from that program, and honest to goodness doesn't have to be stationed in Alaska or Honolulu or San Diego, but be stationed here in Guam. Mr. Chair, there was a reason for why the University of Guam and their regents placed in programs such as Reserve Officer Training Corps, Regent Scholarships, Marine Lab Grad Assistant programs. In fact, I just want to comment on Marine Lab Grad Assistant programs. There is a lot of global warming that's occurring. There's just glacial melts that are going melting at an exponential rate that are going to have an impact on our water system globally, including our reefs. Some of these graduate assistant programs to bring these folks here, it's not just for them to get an education. It's also for, and in fact, I don't want to jump the gun there because that's not being taken out. But I'm saying there was a reason for these programs. And a lot of it has to do with education and of course, with that education, an advancement in a career. So again, I strongly object to this amendment. And I'm hoping and I'm requesting that the other members of the body see fit in keeping Reserve Officers Training Corps program as a viable program and scholarship that is funded from local tax dollars. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Caldwell. Senator Ogden, you're next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think that in deference to the mover of this particular amendment, I just want to state that, in fact, I have some serious reservations. But I think what's very important in this conversation, Mr. Speaker, is if, in fact, the public can be privy to some of the statements that were made regarding this particular program and how it's been administered in the past. So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, if I can ask you to please yield to the Chair of Education, just so that she can explain why this particular amendment may have come about. So, if the mover of the amendment, Mr. Chair, and the good speaker, Wampad, is willing to yield, I think it's important that at least that information be disseminated to the members of the body.
Okay. So you're asking this if the Speaker Wampad would yield. Speaker Wampad, would you yield to a question from...
yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Speaker Wampad, I think as it applies to the possible deletion of the Reserve Officer Training Corps, I think one of the questions is whether in fact, or one of the assertions initially was whether in fact the funding is really federal funds coming directly from DOD or coming directly from a federal source. Now, information that was shared briefly with a number of senators in the room was somewhat different to that. Can I just ask you, please, Madam Speaker, if you can just enlighten the members of this committee and also the public about how the program has been administered recently in recent years, so that at least there's that good clarification, please. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Speaker
you.
Wampad.
My understanding is that they do not get not one penny from the federal government or from DOD for the ROTC program. This was a program that was created by the Board of Regents, and it has always been included in the budget where they were able to get a lump sum. It used to be, as a matter of fact, itemized, and then that was changed in previous legislatures, where they now then put it in a lump sum so that then they can make a decision. The president can make a decision and decide how much should be given to each one of them. So they were able then to have or earmark a certain amount of the total scholarships to go to the ROTC program. The only two requirements are, one is that they must have a 2.5 GPA, and the second is that they must enroll in military science classes. It doesn't say that they must be enrolled in the military. It doesn't say they must be in the reserves. It doesn't say that they must enter the military once they have graduated from the university, just to make sure that they are taking military science classes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Senator Ogden.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I still have some serious reservations in terms of endorsing the deletion of the Reserve Officer Training Corps, Mr. Chairman. I think, obviously, I have a keen interest in this particular issue. But perhaps this can be addressed from a sideline perspective where, in fact, we take any funding mechanism that is attributed directly towards this specific program and require repayment back to the community in service. Maybe that might be a different option, only because I remember back, Mr. Speaker, in the year 2000 and 2001, when our ROTC program, through the competitive nature and through participating in an ROTC military exercise off island, ranked number 7 in the nation. Out of so many different entities involved in that particular competition, there were tremendous accolades given to the University of Guam ROTC program, because not only do they allow individuals to ascend into commission opportunities in the military, whether it be in the Army or any military branch, but also it allowed them to be able to develop other aspects of their education agenda. So I think that perhaps looking at it from a different angle, Mr. Speaker, as opposed to just arbitrarily deleting it off the books, I think is critical. Otherwise, individuals that are already in the program may be dismissed, and their scholarship funding by virtue of this one action by this body may underline or may arbitrarily remove them from receiving any scholarship going into this upcoming semester and for the balance of this upcoming school year. So, Mr. Chair, I seriously have reservations, and I wanted to share that with you because perhaps there's a different way of approaching this rather than just arbitrarily deleting it altogether. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have Senator Barnes, then Senator Tenorio, Senator Ada, Senator Cruz.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as we just recently heard the concerns from the previous speaker, I too have my reservations in reference to the amendment as proposed, but I would just like to know if I can have the the author of the amendment yield to a question that I may have in reference to this amendment right now on the amended deletion. Is it okay? No. Speaker Wampat.
Oh, Speaker Wampat.
Yes, I would yield.
No, we're on Senator Rector's.
Right, amendment to the amendment, but
Right.
in reference to how it was gone, because according to what was previously said, that there are several scholarships here that were implemented by the Board of Regents and not by public law.
Okay. Speaker Wampat, would you yield to a question from Senator
Yes,
Barnes?
I will. Thank you.
All right.
My concern, Mr. Chair, is if these scholarship programs were implemented by the chair, by the Board of Regents, and those that were recommended that were instituted by law, was there a provision or could there be a section where the payback or the contribution back based on the scholarships received be included based on the guidelines that were proffered within the other programs like the Doc Sanchez Scholarship Program, the John Quan Memorial Scholarship Program, and so forth?
Well, Mr. Chairman, to be able to put that language, of course, now only you would be able to decide if that's an amendment that would be proper to proffer at this time, or should then a separate bill actually be written to then require that there be that debt service requirement. I will tell you, however, that in my discussion with the university president, the vice presidents, and financial office, is that we did talk about it, and they were willing to work with us in actually writing a separate bill to make it all uniform and to mandate it so that then there would be a service requirement. They have absolutely no objections to that at all. Whether, like I said, whether you want to accept it now or in a separate bill form.
Mr. Chairman, maybe a point of information.
Yes.
I just finished speaking with the former professor of military science, Mr. David Okada, and he indicated that, first of all, the Department of the Army does provide scholarships that is available on a national competition basis. And there are some cadets at UOG who have been able to actually successfully get a scholarship. Secondly, a cadet that enters the program can enter into a contract with the Department of the Army to receive a commission at the end of the 4-year program if he successfully completes the program. So he can make that decision at the front end of the program. If he decides that, or he can wait until his 3rd year. At that point, when he gets into the 3rd year, he has to contract, and he has to serve in the military. It could be when he serves in the military, it could be here with the National Guard. If he's offered a position on the active army, then he can go, and then when he finishes that tour of duty, he can choose to come back to Guam and serve the island. In addition to that, once that cadet contracts, he also gets a monthly stipend from the Department of the Army. For senior cadets, they get as much as $500 a month. And according to Mr. Okada, who retired a couple of years ago, he indicated that for freshmen, of course, their monthly stipend is a little less, but as they go further into the program, the stipend does get increased, and it does help them along the way. So so that is my point of information.
So the information you're providing is that a student at the University of Guam who wants to join or is interested in military science has access to federal dollars on a scholarship basis with a commitment at either the front or the back end.
Correct.
Okay.
But they have to compete for it on a national basis. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Can I get a point of clarification on that?
All right.
The scholarship is one thing, but if they sign a contract, I thought the speaker said, and I'm asking if the speaker would yield, the former speaker, on what I thought I heard him say is that if they sign a contract, whether they sign it or at the front end or the back end, saying they're going to serve in the military, just like we do for people that we give scholarships to that we enacted by law, then they start getting a stipend instantly. There's no competition involved as long as they get accepted. Is that what I heard?
Senator Ada, go ahead and let.
Yes, and of course to get into first of all, to get into a program whether you decide to contract or not at the front end, you've got to meet certain eligibility requirements, be able to pass the physical tests and all that stuff. Now, if he does contract, let's say as a freshman, he gets a little bit of a stipend, and the incentive, of course, is if you get into the 2nd year, then that stipend gets a little bit larger.
But that's not on a national competition?
No, that's here with the local ROTC program.
Okay.
So then that stipend, plus if he's made eligible to get some of the scholarship money from UOG, certainly assists that cadet in completing his university studies.
Okay, all right.
Can I add
I understand.
one more additional information?
One more
to
additional
make sure.
information.
Because I have in front of me here resolution number 05-30 that was passed by the University of Guam Board of Regents, and number 12 says no stipends will be provided. So we're not using local monies for stipends. What it is that they're using for tuition and other materials,
That's right.
but not a stipend.
The stipend that I made reference to is coming from the Department of the Army, from the ROTC program.
Okay, so we are with Senator Barnes.
Mr. Chair, and thank you. Though I appreciate where the mover of the amendment to the amendment is in reference to the deletion of this, I still have my concerns and want to make sure that I don't take away from the validity of the intent of where we want to go with this. So I'm going to continue to listen to my colleagues in reference to this, but again, I do have my concerns because I do not want to take away, but I am adamant about the fact about wanting to make sure that a debt service back to the government for the contributions that will be given to based on that scholarship that is provided to that student, that there will be some kind of reciprocation back to the government for the stipends or for the scholarships that are received. So hoping whether we do it in an amendment that would be inclusive here or talking further with a good speaker in reference to doing a standalone bill, I think I remain strong that I want to make sure that we don't take away the intent for where our students want to go to, when whether it be with the reserve ROTC or the other scholarship programs that are afforded to the students at the university. So, si Zeus Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator Barnes. Senator Tenorio, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to say I don't have reservations on this amendment. I have an objection. And until I hear information to the contrary, I'm going to maintain that. But for the basic reason that we've seen our sons and daughters go to the ROC2 program. I've been up the university for years and seeing all the kids and the young men and women who go to that program. And 9 times, if not 99% of the time, they go on to get into a military career. I've seen them and you've seen them, and they've gone on to represent our people very well. And as a matter of fact, they've even excelled in military, not just in the Army, but in other branches of the military. So, you know, we need to make sure what we're looking at here is not too myopic in thinking in the way that if we are going to be able to capture federal funds and to take care of this training, then that's great. But I think we all recognize the benefit of the military experience and the training that it gives and empowers people, not just in the military, but also in the private community, because Lord knows how many are in business right now, or even in the government, who has many years of experience, and some of that could have been drawn down from the ROTC. So unless I hear information to the contrary, I'm going to continue to support a program that's entitling people within our community here. And as I understand it, we have one of the more successful ROTC programs across the nation, representing our people proudly. So I'd be cautious about, and I object to striking this section.
Thank you very much, Senator Tenorio. Senator Ada, you had your hand up. You provided information. Did you still want to speak on the amendment, to the amendment?
Only to voice my objection to the amendment, because I still think that, it's fine that the university provides curriculum or classes in mathematics and in English and all that. But I don't believe that in those classes you really get the hands-on experience to develop one's leadership skills. And the ROTC program provides that. And I think that we don't want to, I think that we expect from our university not just to train our people to be good in math and to be good in English, but to also develop those leadership skills. And the ROTC program is the program that actually, I believe, delivers in that respect. Yes, you can see our National Guard, even our Army Reserves, the generation of officers that they have there now, are products of the ROTC program. Those units have been very effective. They've come back, whenever they get deployed, they've come back with accolades because the leadership that was provided to the soldiers was certainly very excellent. And a lot of that was products of the ROTC program. So certainly I would object very strongly to deleting the ROTC program as eligible for to receive the scholarship. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What we're talking about here is $2,600,000. And we've been told that the Department of Defense is providing some assistance already to ROTC and Department of Defense, or I watch TV a lot in my old age, and I see a lot of those commercials that you sign up and you'll get some kind of assistance in going to school. Mr. Chairman, it was just in the last 2 weeks, as I look at my Tribune here, that there was a big story about the fact that there was a gathering up at one of the university buildings up there trying to talk to young medical students to come back to Guam. And their complaint was that they had been mistreated by the Board of Regents in their professional technical scholarships. We're dealing with a limited amount of money, and with all due respect to the military, if we're planning for the future, as I've said since the beginning of this buildup, my number one concern is health and human services. We don't have enough doctors, and we don't have enough people in human services, i.e. psychologists and psychiatrists, counselors, and the like. And we're going to need them when we have men and women on their 5th trip back from a tour of duty, and they have PTSD from their 4th or 5th trip. We need to address those two issues. If I had my way, I'd strike out a number of these others and make sure that the ProTech was for medical purposes. There was a period where my sister was upset at me when she was legal counsel of the university, because I was Chief Justice, and they asked me what kind of scholarships did I want at the university and which ones were not needed. And I told them to strike scholarships for lawyers and give all the scholarships to doctors and psychiatrists in human services. Because that's what we need in this community at this time. It was a need that I saw 10 years ago. It's a need that's not been addressed, and it's a need that needs to be addressed now if we're going to plan for anything. Even if we weren't going to have this build-up, we need these kinds of personnel here. We need more people to come back because we underwrote their scholarships to go to med school. But when we send them off and they come back with $150,000 worth of loans because we didn't give them anything, then I tell whoever called me to take a flying somewhere and forget it. I ain't coming back if I'm not going to get paid a sufficient amount of money, especially after I have to absorb $150,000 worth of loans. We've got to make some priorities, and I'm sorry, but I really do think that these scholarships should be devoted to medicine and to the human services.
Senator Cruz, Senator Gutherts, and then Senator Palacios.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. You know, I guess I can address this because of my past life as a teacher at the university that had the great honor of instructing students that were members of the ROTC program. And I want to emphasize to everybody here that when we talk about changing a scholarship program dramatically or removing it from a list, we're crushing dreams of our young people. At this very moment, students are registering for the fall semester at the University of Guam and also at Guam Community College. You would be surprised to know just how many students get involved in the ROTC program at the University of Guam and how it affects their lives in a very positive way. Yes, there are needs in other areas, but this program has proven itself to be extremely effective. When the Board of Regents made the determination that there was a need to widen opportunities for students interested in the ROTC program, it was because of the limited scholarships available, the national scholarships available, especially here, to those seeking careers in the military service. That's why the Board of Regents came up with this program. This program has allowed many of our young people on Guam to realize their dreams. And by the way, a number of them who've completed their military service under this program have come back to serve our island with honor. One of them is David Okada. He retired from the military 2 years ago and joined the University of Guam community as the chief planner. Extremely talented young man who has shared his life experiences in the military and his leadership skills that were developed as a cadet in this program with our island. It's certainly easy to wipe it out, but we're playing with the dreams of our young people, and we really shouldn't do it. Certainly we shouldn't do it in a budget hearing without understanding the repercussions. So my recommendation would be this. Certainly there's a need perhaps to indicate a payback process of some kind for service because it's locally funded. But there's a problem with that also, because we've had young people who have a payback responsibility, who want to pay back in service, who cannot be accommodated when they come home to do that. That's another issue altogether, by the way, on some of our scholarship programs. But I would recommend really that we don't remove this. I would recommend that we do a little further research to see what a good service payback would be. But we let this program go. Students have enrolled in this program now and have been selected for the scholarship for the fall semester. It was advertised in the newspaper. Senator B.J. Cruz is correct. It was a very comprehensive feature story in both newspapers on this program. And there are students in this program, new students and continuing students. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Much, Senator Guthert. Senator Palacios.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I support the rector amendment, it is because I rather see the funds earmarked for the ROTC be used, for example, for the mandated program, such as the Merit Award Program, Student Loan Program, ProTech, Doc Sanchez, and the Guam Memorial. And these are 5, and there's the early high school admission program. Actually, there are 6 mandated programs aside, in addition to the nursing. And so putting aside the $500,000 for the nursing, that leaves $2.1 million for the 6 mandated program. Now to include the other 3, and I say other 3 because I understand that the region scholarship and the Marine Lab graduate assistance are all regions, Board of Regents programs internal to UOG. And it is because of the limited funding that I take the position that I think this government should not subsidize those programs which were established at the option of the Board of Regents. And I would like to ask you, of course, at the end of this presentation, really, about what is the monetary amount that we are talking about, at least in the current budget for the ROTC.
The way that the ROTC scholarship works and the way that they detailed in the budget they submitted to the committee did not break that out in terms of which program gets how much. So it might have, we'll look at it, but I don't recall seeing for the non-mandated scholarship. Yeah. So,
but maybe some kind of historical data.
Discretionary.
Maybe actual expenditure of the FY08 budget, for example, just to give an idea of what we're talking about and what kind of money can we switch for the nursing or maybe for the Doc Sanchez. The Doc Sanchez is the only program that enrolls government of Guam employees. And all these mandated programs, Mr. Chairman, each one of them has a payback clause, an obligation upon the recipient to return service to the people of Guam in behalf of the taxpayers' money spent for them pursuing those programs.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
I apologize. I do have the breakdown. We were able to find it. The proposed amount for FY 2010 allocation for the ROTC program is $48,936. The FY 2000 budget that the University of Guam had allocated for the ROTC program this fiscal year, FY 2009, is $60,000. So for the FY 2009, we're talking about almost $49,000, $48,936.
You see, that's of course that's an amount that now we're talking about. So if that amount were to be earmarked for the ROTC, then it would be the same amount not available for ProTech. And that's where I'm coming from. It is not that the program is not a viable program. It is a good program. But because there are 6 other mandated programs of which there is a requirement by the recipient, on the recipient to return this, I guess, a benefit to the people of Guam. The most that I can support the continued inclusion of this program is that there should be some kind of payback clause to be the same with the other 6 programs. Otherwise, we are subsidizing with people's money scholarships that the people of Guam may not see the benefit at all, other than to say that that individual graduate from our program. But, you know, that's nice to have if we have money to burn, to throw away. But we're talking about $2.6 million for the entire program for 1 year. I'd rather see that money stay in the student loan, for example, or somewhere there. And that's my position. So if I support the Rector's Amendment, it is because I want to see that money go to the mandated program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Senator Espodan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm not really sure where I stand on this issue at this point in time in terms of the amendment to the amendment. But the question that comes to my mind, again, is that we're taking a look at, there are 6 programs that are mandated by law. And the reason why they're mandated, because they are areas in which the government has felt that there has been a need to fill within, for our community. We're talking about teachers, we're talking about nurses, and we're talking doctors and so forth. And so it's definitely necessary that we fund these areas, as the previous speaker said. The question I guess I have in my mind is that if the Board of Regents at the University of Guam has the authority to create these scholarships, does that mean that we are then mandated to fund them? And the answer, of course, is no. And I think that anytime that the University of Guam Board of Regents creates a scholarship fund of some degree, they would have to come into some conversation with this body to make sure that if they're going to depend upon taxpayers' dollars to fund this, that we are fully apprised and aware, and that we can actually engage in a conversation to determine whether going forward we can actually sustain such a scholarship program. And so, in very simple terms, if we don't put some kind of limitation, or at least some in terms of the Board of Regents' ability to create scholarship programs, who's to say that they could not create 10 more scholarship programs and then force us to have to try to fund it? Now, this might be an opportune time for them to do it because we are showing that we are seeing some growth in revenues at this point. But in other times, and I can just recall even just the last budget cycle they went through, one of the reasons why we couldn't give them full funding for what they were asking, and one of the issues in terms of not being able to fund some of these scholarship programs, and it might be these 3 that we're addressing right now, right, is because they were not mandated by law. And so they weren't necessary to be funded because it was not created by law. It was created by the Board of Regents. So bottom line is that the reasoning is that if the Board of Regents are able to create any kind of scholarship fund that they deem is possible, maybe just to get enrollment up and get other students interested in different areas or whatever the reason may be, and I'm sure they have good reasons, they would still have to try to engage us in this conversation of whether it's within our budget to be able to do something like that. And again, much like the previous speaker, if I did support this amendment to the amendment, it would be on that basis. It would be on the basis that we can't have a Board of Regents making all these scholarship provisions and providing all these scholarships and creating new scholarship funds without the financial backing, if they are going to look to us to back them financially. Now, if the University of Guam Endowment Fund is going to be the ones to fund these scholarships that the Board of Regents come up with, then that's fine. That no longer is within our jurisdiction. That is no longer within our purview to have to discuss, because that funding will come internally through the endowment fund. But this is not the case here. And so again, my point, and I guess the argument that goes on in my head, is that how much further down the road, and again, not that I'm disrespecting in any way the Board of Regents and the quality of decisions they make up there, but again, in terms of creating anything new and in terms of requiring some funding from the government of Guam, they would have to engage us in that conversation. And by the creation of these scholarship funds, these 3 scholarship funds, they have not. And there is no definite sustained appropriations or monies for those programs. It's almost like we're being forced to fund them just because they were created without any input for us. And that's, again, the dilemma I have in my head. Not that not that these are bad programs, but then are we always going to be forced to have to fund programs that have not been discussed with us? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Espaldon. Any other speakers? Senator Taitagui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, I was at the budget for University of Guam, and this area was not very clear to me. But now sitting here today and being the new senator and with budgets, finding out that we are definitely going into detail with this. And there was a part when we talked with GP or DOE with regards to the ROTC program, and I believe we had this discussion with the good speaker as well as you and I with how much money that we are pumping into ROTC to these young students out of the high school area. Some of these instructors at the high school are earning almost $70,000, and some of that, we're paying a lot of that already. It's not that we are not doing our job to be contributing to the dream of young individuals who want to join the military. We are doing our part in a big way if we look at the numbers in the high school level and what we're contributing there. By the way, it is 8 programs here, not 6, that are mandated. 3 of them are not mandated, but the scholarship programs are 8. That's quite a bit. With only 2 million plus, I mean, it's very small for each individual. Now, the last speaker, my good colleague over here on my right, mentioned about, the concern of the University of Guam being able to open up any other programs they want or put scholarships out there. My question is, if maybe the good speaker, Wampat, can answer this, or yourself, is when we give this money, this 2.6, who has the authority to dictate what goes to what program?
The determination is made by the University of Guam administration, and it starts with the president, of course.
So this money that was issued out last year at $60,000 for the ROTC program, that was upon their discretion, and right now they're saying they're planning on putting $48,936 for 2010. But that's on their discretion. They can change that at any time, and we would have no control over that. My big issue too is the fact that what do they give back? Us funding this program here, what really, we can't ask these young individuals to stay on Guam and stay in the reserves here on this island. My son called me, and he's about 19 years old, and he said, "Mom, I'm thinking about joining the military, so it's not going to cost you so much money to put me through college." And I thought, oh, no, son. Think about that. Go there, make sure that everything is accurate, that they are going to pay for your school. And he came back and he said, yes, they will help pay for my school. So the option for these individuals who have dreams in the military are there for them, paid by the federal government, in which they are required after that to give back to the military and serve for 3 years. Or 4 years, depending on what line of service you're in. So there is an option for those dreams to come true. But what we don't have is the option to be able to neglect the areas that this island needs. Those services that we are looking for, that we're going out there and trying to recruit nurses and doctors, engineers. So, in all, it's not that the dreams are lost for our people here, these young students here. There is an opportunity for them, but we don't have that luxury of supporting that area in which they have an opportunity elsewhere. as these other programs don't. We have to fund it, not the federal government. The federal government's not going to fund the Doc Sanchez program. It's not going to fund the John Joaquin Memorial Program. It's not going to fund the Marine Lab. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Taitigui. Just for the information of the body also, the governor's request for the scholarships was about 2.3 million. The committee increased that amount to the $2,610,000, 670 that you see. So this legislature is committing to increasing the scholarships from the original budget that was submitted. So I just wanted you to know that. That exhausts the members who have chosen to speak on the amendment proposed by Senator Rector, and that was to strike out ROTC, junior ROTC, in the, I think it's the Reserve Officer Training Corps, comma, ROTC, and parenthesis, ROTC, close parenthesis. On that amendment,
Can I close on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Senator Rector. Senator Rector, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, as a freshman senator, I'm always amazed at how good the discussion can be sometimes in this room and how much thought comes out of it. I would hate for anybody to think that in any way, shape, or form this is an anti-military, anti-federal government amendment. It's not. There is lots of funding available, federal funding for young people to get a college education through the military. In fact, in case anybody doesn't know, the federal government just passed a new GI Bill, which is phenomenal. Actually, I'm losing one of my staff because he's like, look, they're going to pay me $40,000 a year plus all my tuition, plus all my books to go back to college. So there is lots of federal funding, but as many of the previous speakers put out, man, we have a lot of needs on our island. Nobody's going to pay to educate teachers for us. Nobody's going to pay to educate nurses for us. Nobody's going to pay to educate doctors for us. And nobody's going to pay to educate historians for Guam. These are things that we, the people of Guam, decided are important for our island, and I think we need to really focus our funding source to the things that this legislature has approved. Now, that being said, as we go through this, if this amendment passes, I'm going to do some further research because I would hate to see some young person left holding if they've already got it and they're about ready to start school, I'd hate to see them go, oh, now I can't start in a week. So if this passes, I will go and talk to the university and make sure that there's no kids in that category, and if there are, I'll put another amendment back in the miscellaneous provision to make sure that no kids are left behind at this point. But I still think the amendment to the amendment's a good one, and I hope that my colleagues will help support ensuring that all of our kids have an opportunity at a decent college education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Rector. Senator Palacio.
Point of clarification, just to make sure. The Rector Amendment is not eliminating the program. The Rector Amendment is just saying that none of this financial aid is going to apply to the program.
That's correct.
But it does not terminate the program.
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Okay. So on the Rector Amendment, which would strike Reserve Officer Training Corps, parenthesis, ROTC, close parenthesis. All in favor, raise your hand. Amendment fails. All right. We are now on the WAMPAT amendment as originally presented. Yes. I've asked the clerk to do that at the beginning. All right. The Wampat amendment? On the main amendment, Senator Ogden? See, I had...
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question, please, if I may indulge the chair. In terms of the administrative costs of all of these programs, I think it's been highlighted repeatedly on a few occasions that we have anywhere from 7 to 8 programs that are being administered under the guise of the student scholarships and financial assistance up at UOG. Now, there's a restriction here, the language that is being proposed to incorporate that no more than 10% of the appropriation be allocated towards the administration of these programs. I am in complete support of that. Obviously, setting a cap and allowing for most of the resources to be allocated towards helping our students get through their college education is ideal. But does the committee or does the chair of education have any information in terms of how much the administration costs are associated with this particular provision?
The question was?
The question was more or less, do we know exactly what the administration costs are associated with the administration of all these scholarships and financial assistance? Because you did have some specifics on the ROTC, and I was just wondering if the committee
No,
has...
the ROTC was the
Yeah, that
amount.
was 60 and that was 48.
Yeah.
But on the overall administration, because there, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, there's a provision here that not more than 10% of the total appropriation herein shall be used for the administration of all student financial assistance programs, and that's being inserted as a new provision in the law, or in this particular section, it will be codified. So I was just wondering what the impact would be if, in fact, the cost of the administration of all the scholarships and the financial aid is below the $260,000 threshold. Then obviously this will not have a negative impact on the administration of the programs. If it's slightly above, then certainly the president as well as the administration has to be alerted to this so that they can make appropriate accommodations going into the next FY.
Okay. Let me just, let me read to you, Senator. The FY 2010 operations budget proposed by the University of Guam for the Student Financial Assistance Program, the cost of the administration or the operation of that program is $368,485. That is according to the University of Guam submittal outlining the cost center of the Student Financial Assistance Program.
Then that being the case, Mr. Speaker, I guess my biggest concern is making sure that the administration is very much cognizant of this, the insertion of this restriction of no more than 10%. Because if you're looking at an administration or a scholarship amount of $2.6 million, you're looking at an annualized administration cost affiliated with that appropriation figure of no more than $260,000. And the information you just provided the body was that the anticipated administration cost in fiscal year 10 is $368,485.
Right.
Then obviously there's a $100,000 gap. Now,
$30,000.
368
Yes, 368.
versus the 2.6 mil, so that's about 260,000, which would be the 10% equivalent. So we're off by about 100,000, 108,000. So that's my only concern, Mr. Chair, is ensuring that the administration of UOG has the heads up that if in fact that's your administration cost, then there's got to be some provision for them to be able to proceed in the direction of making sure that no more than the allocated 2.6 mil be allocated or used specifically for administration of the financial aid programs.
Yes, but the University of Guam operates some other financials, like they operate Pell Grants and so forth, where those costs are also borne for those programs are under the Student Financial Assistance Program. So the entire administration of the Student Financial Assistance Program is not taken from just this appropriation.
Okay. I just want to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact the administration of the program.
Understood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to also add that, you are correct in terms of how the administrative costs are being addressed by the university. But if you also, I know you don't have it, but I have this breakdown that was given to me by the university on their revenues, and they have a collection projection of $585,000 in addition that can be used for either administrative costs or to go ahead and add on again to other scholarships.
That's correct.
So that would definitely address, and we did call them about that, and they agree that that could also be used for administrative costs.
Yes, okay. So just for the body's information, this amount here is supplemented by the collections from students paying back loans and so forth. So this, so that was just clarified. Senator Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you answered partially, both you and Speaker Wampat. But I agree with Senator Egan that there's got to be a cap on this thing. I mean, I'm sorry, but when we were at the certification program, we're dealing with 3,000 teachers or something, some huge number. And the administration of that is a fraction of what they're doing with the number of scholarships they're giving. I know that they don't have that thousands of scholarships. And I really have grave concerns about any program spending more than 10% on core administration, because it's just that the money that we're giving should be going to a scholarship recipient, and hopefully a medical scholarship recipient, rather than to pay for a classified servant to be doling out the money.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator Cruz. Any other members of the body wish to talk on Senator Wampat's amendment? On Senator Wampat's amendment, I'm calling for the vote. All in favor of the Wampat amendment, please raise. Okay, all
I
right.
have one more amendment. If you look at the small I, where we have the breakdown is at the very end of the merit awards, I forgot to put in that there is the $500 for graduate students.
I'm sorry?
After, on the little I, small I, at the end of that sentence where it says $400.
Yes.
For the third and fourth is to add $500 for graduate students.
Per graduate student.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
If you're at the University of Guam, and you go through the 4-year program, and then you continue on, it is provided for.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it would be Senator Wampat's amendment would be under I, to add per graduate student after the word for or the parenthesis $400. Any of? Yes, it's to add the word per graduate student, correct? $500. The amount is $500 per graduate student. Yes, I believe that is per month. Yeah. 9 monthly.
So then, Mr.
Point of
Chairman,
Yes.
the amendment then would be on after 400 to be semicolon, and for graduate students $500 per month.
Is that additional language?
Can we have a 1-minute recess just so
Okay,
that
just
we
a
can
1
make
minute
sure?
recess then on this. So $500 for graduates. Yeah, she's not changing this to 500.
No, that stays at 400 plus add in the line. So
Oh, okay.
give the graduates
Okay.
500.
Okay.
So that's for third and fourth.
So you're adding new. All right. We're back in. All right. Committee of the Whole is back in session. The clarification on the amendment being offered by Speaker Wampat is to, Speaker Wampat, you want to just make it very clear with regards to the amendment you're presenting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that this would be a technical correction that legal counsel can add, because it says 9 monthly installments, and I know for the $200 we say per month, and then we'll add that per month for the third and four-year students, and then the graduate students also will be $500 per month.
Okay. So it would be to put graduate students $500 per month. Okay. On that amendment, no objections. The amendment passes. On the Wampat amendment as amended? $30 seconds? All right, just a 30-second amendment. Recess. Yes? Oh, she's a good lady. I know her. Okay. Yeah. And I know we never. Did it pass? No, not yet. All right, Senator Ogden, are you ready with? Okay. The Committee of the Whole is back in session. Senator Ogden on the Senator Wampat amendment.
The good chairman of education had an emergency call, Mr. Speaker, so she just stepped out momentarily, but I did consult with her and our legal counsel. And if I can beg the indulgence of the members of the body, if you read the bottom line for the subsection dealing with merit awards and nursing training program, it reads, for new recipients of the student financial assistance programs contained in this subsection, awarded beginning academic year 2009 and 2010, and then it continues, stipend shall be awarded as follows. And we certainly don't want to have anyone misinterpret the intent of the legislature in terms of restricting some of the other benefits associated with participating in these programs. And that's inclusive of payment of tuition and books. So, Mr. Speaker, if I can propose a amendment right after the numbers 2009-20010, comma, to read as follows. The stipends awarded in the respective programs shall be as follows. So that the interpretation and the understanding here is that this particular provision only impacts the stipends.
Okay.
Not the other components of the program.
All right.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
So, again, would you just read the amendment that you proposed? We're going to
Okay.
ask you to put that in writing and give it to the clerk.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right after 2010, comma, it will read, the stipends awarded in the respective programs shall be as follows, colon.
Okay.
And then reads on. Thank you very
All right.
much, Mr. Chairman.
All right. On that amendment, no objections. Amendment carries. On the Wampat amendment, any objections to the Wampat amendment as amended? Senator Guthertz?
What was the amendment? I'm sorry. I support her amendment, but I have just a slight language to add. Very slight.
All right.
If I can add this language, then I can dispense with the amendment that I passed out.
Okay, so it's the amendment as amended.
Yes.
All right.
And it would be, there's no numbering here, so I don't know what line this is, but it's at the end of the first paragraph, section 2A. At the end of that paragraph, I just want to add the language. The Pt.2 Sanchez Scholarship Program shall receive no less than $300,000 of the appropriation contained herein. Period.
Okay. And
may I explain why, Mr. Chairman?
Where would you put that? I just want to make sure.
At the end of the first paragraph which amends sections 2A under student scholarships, financial assistance programs, and program administration, right at the end.
Is it in the bill or in the amendment?
It's Senator Wampat's amendment.
Okay. Well, the first paragraph ends with the words
Section.
section. Okay.
Right after that.
All right.
So it would say the Pt.2 Sanchez Scholarship Program shall receive no less than $300,000 of the appropriation contained herein.
Okay.
Period.
All right. All right.
And may I explain
Yes.
just real brief?
On your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, there's been some problems over the last few years in terms of properly funding the scholarship because of the lump sum appropriation. And this would make it very clear that this program will not be slighted in any way, and that the monies, the $300,000 at least, will go to this program and not for salaries or administrative overhead. That's really the intent of this provision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. On the amendment, Senator Palacios, and then Speaker Wampat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of the amendment. My observation in the last 5 years is that there appears to be a continuing decline in the funding for the Doug Sanchez. Why? Because the allotment decision for these different programs actually is at the discretion of the UOG administration. And it's been brought to my attention by, I guess, some recipients and some potential students that and faculties that the program is taking, I think, a backseat with respect to the promotion of the program itself. And the Doug Sanchez, my understanding is that it is for Government of Guam employees to enroll and to become, better employees and more competent employees. And so I support a definite amount, such as the $300,000 that's proposed here, so that at least they can be guaranteed that there's that minimum amount dedicated for the Doug Sanchez program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Speaker Wampat, and then Senator Ada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I can't disagree with the previous speaker's comment that there's been a decline granted because of the discretion of the administration in terms of how much they want to be able to give to each specific scholarship program. There's some problems, however, Mr. Chairman, with the amendment that's being proffered. For one thing, is that the breakdown that we received, which was I'll just show you the differences between 2009 budget and 2010, and you can see the reductions. The advanced high school placement was, or at 40,000, it is now reduced to 15,000. The Quan scholarship was at 70,000, they reduced it down to 17,500. The merit scholarship was at 1.8 million, down to 1.7. The nursing program was 484,000, and it was 310, and then you've increased it now to 500. The professional technical award, ProTech award, is 518,000, and that has gone down to 230,000. The Doc Sanchez scholarship was at 289,000, and it's now recommended for 100,000. And then the Hero Scholarship, that's very different because that comes from the court. It remains the same at 20,000. Then there's the request, of course, for the Regent Scholarship Program. And I think the decline, like I said, is not just only the amount of money that they're getting, but because of these other additional scholarships has been added on. So now, in addition to what we've mandated by law, that there is now the Regent Scholarship Program of 125,000, and the reduction only went by 123,000. And then the ROTC program from 60,000 to almost 49,000. Then the Marine Lab was at 50,000 to now $36,000 or $37,000. So for one thing, is that what's listed in the breakdown in terms of what it would be given to each one of these scholarships, the Doc Sanchez scholarship is at, yes, 100,000, 858,000. So by putting down that the request that it be no less than 300,000, then you've definitely going to cut now all of any of these other programs by an additional $200,000 that you need to reduce. And then secondly, is that by law there are absolutely no stipends that are given to these students. Instead, what is paid for is tuition, textbooks, and student fees, not a stipend. So, and unless, Mr. Chairman, you want to go that route where you want to itemize every single one of these as scholarships to put a set dollar amount. Otherwise, we're giving the lump sum, of course, where they'll be able to have that discretion to decide how they want to be able to divide, these monies. So I've not really, basically, I guess, made a decision whether I support or not support this amendment. But I just thought that you needed to hear the information in terms of at least how it was divided up in 2009 and now for 2010. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I have, after Speaker Wampat on the amendment, Senator Ada.
Mr. Chairman, it's just really more so probably a point of inquiry. I recall that, earlier there's been always a big discussion and concern about the interference with the university's operations, and I guess it has to do with their accreditation. And are we kind of coming close to that now, where we're now telling them how much to fund for a certain scholarship? I mean, they came in with a breakdown of how they would look at breaking down that $2.6 million, but are we now kind of coming close to that edge where we're starting to micromanage the very thing that WAS says we should not do?
You asking me for my opinion? I'll be very no. I think from an overall perspective, I don't believe so. I think the scholarship, you can say, this is the scholarship, this is how much it's for. We're not telling them the rules and regulations of the scholarship. If we put that in law, we can, and so forth. But in the respect that we've in the past gone with a lump sum and left it to their discretion, I think we can always take back that because we're funding that and say, these are the programs we want and this is the amount, you administer it. So I think from that perspective of specific appropriation levels for specific programs, I don't believe it would be. That's my opinion.
Well, I certainly will follow your leadership on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Senator Cruz and then Senator Calvo.
Mr. Chairman, my question is just the converse. How do we deal with a university that just ignores legislative mandate?
Yeah.
And what I'm pointing out, Mr. Chairman, is I keep wondering why I'm so concerned about health, but both of you and I know why it's so important to us at our age. But the thing is that you said you were a senior citizen the other day,
I am.
AARP certified, so
yes, I am.
So you can't. But Mr. Chairman, those of you in an earlier legislature passed legislation establishing the UMT program, which was for access to medical training and education. When I came into the legislature on the 28th, I thought that when the 26th had that a law that any board that hadn't met in the previous year or 12 months was abolished, except for university programs. So unless I'm mistaken, and maybe this is a point of inquiry for our two legal counsel, is UMT still in the books? Because it's still in the codes. And the other day when I was trying to reintroduce the UMT program because of my concern about the fact that doctors don't want to come back to Guam to serve us. I thought that was going to be the way to do it. I was told that the UMT program in Chapter 47, Title 17 still exists. But I'm wondering, how could the university just completely ignore our mandate to have a program by not funding it and instead deciding that they're going to establish 3 additional programs and fund it at $500,000 a year? The Regents Scholarship and the other 2 scholarships they established on their own account for, at least from the breakdown that the speaker gave us, $500,000. And that would be enough to do the UMT program in a proper way, to be able to make sure that we have doctors that are being educated and will be returning to Guam because of the fact that their community has made a commitment and an investment in their education. But the university has completely ignored us on it. They've not met. The president is the chairman of that. And yet we're just kind of saying, oh, well. I don't see how they can establish any new scholarships when they haven't implemented statutorily created and legislatively mandated scholarship programs, namely the UMT program.
I agree. Thank you very much, Senator Cruz. Senator Cabo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I rise in favor of the Guthers amendment. I'm one of those senators that in previous legislatures was for ensuring that GovGuam employees in hiring have at least a high school diploma. There was a reason for that. I'm also the gentleman that tried to push forward in new changes in terms of budgeting, such as performance-based budgeting. They go hand in hand. As we move through this next few years and the island changes, and we look at the past and seeing sometimes the inefficiencies of government services, we got to recognize that some of those inefficiencies have to deal also with the type of training we give our employees. The number one resource for any entity, and whether it's a corporation or a government, is the human resource, the people. And I think it's so important, as times are changing so fast for us, and this island experiences tremendous growth, that we find a way to keep our government ahead of the curve in terms of providing quality services. And that can happen, and only happen, with a workforce that has the necessary requisite educational and skills, as well as a training. This particular scholarship, again, focuses on our government workforce. I think it's important, Mr. Chair, as some of the comments made by early speakers, we don't minimize this particular program, and it has been minimized, in that we fortify it. And one way to do it is to ensure that there is necessary funding available. Mr. Chair, I'm asking the members of this body to support this amendment. It is an investment. It's investment in our workers, in the government workers, but I think more importantly, it's an investment in our government and our people, and ensuring that our people will be provided better services in the future. And again, with this dynamic economy that's occurring, with our workforce in the government sector that has a degree, in later years they will have also opportunities to contribute to the community, and not always just the public sector, but any other opportunity that may arise also. So again, Mr. Chair, I am in favor of this amendment, and I ask for the support also for other members of the body. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Cabo. Senator Tenorio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I also echo the sentiments of the previous speaker and the mover of this amendment. We're coming into an age of substantial growth for our island, and we're going to be seeing changes that we've never seen before. We need public administrators who are going to be able to meet those challenges of the new Guam and the new direction the island is going to be taken with regards to the military and the economy, and the increase of population is going to necessitate people who are a little bit more dynamic in their thinking. We need to educate that workforce, not just in the trades, but in the administration of our government. The Doc Sanchez program, of which I was a participant and graduated with my public administration degree, was a great impetus for me to proceed in a public administration role here in public service in the legislature, but even more so was a catalyst, I think, to many other people of different walks of life in our public sector to be able to excel and to provide great leadership to many branches, many facets of this government. So I absolutely support this change and amendment to the bill, and I ask all of my colleagues to do the same, because it's really important, if we're going to be investing in public administration to manage our resources, that those public administrators have the training and abilities to make sure that we beef up this program.
Thank you very much, Senator Tenorio. Senator Guthrie, did you want to close on your amendment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've heard the discussion, and I want to thank my colleagues for their input. As our speaker has indicated, and I'm saddened by...
Mr. Chairman, can I, for one, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but that means that if we vote on this, we can't amend it then, so that's why I wanted to amend this first before we vote on the main...
no,
she has an amendment. Then you'll be
we're voting
open for
on her
another
amendment.
Yeah, but her amendment means the entire, the entire written amendment, but I wanted to amend her amendment.
No, I'm sorry. It would be out of order to make an amendment to the amendment. Because you're only... No, an amendment to the amendment to the amendment.
But then we can amend it.
You can amend you can amend the amendment as amended.
After it passes.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Yeah,
Senator
I wanted to thank my colleague, the speaker, for the information that she shared with us. Yeah. Very clearly, the university wants to even reduce the scholarship even more for next fiscal year, bringing it down from about $288,000 to about $118,000. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I'm very saddened by that. The university, in my opinion, has used too much of the scholarship money to hire people in the financial aid office. My belief is that the monies that are supposed to go to the scholarship are used for administrative overhead. And that has been my observation for a number of years. And what I'm trying to do here is to ensure that this government is able to provide the services that are critical to this community by having well-educated public servants. And that's what this scholarship does. It's the most cost-effective scholarship in the government of Guam. It only pays for tuition, books, and fees. That's all it pays for. And it has a very successful track record. But we can't get those government Guam employees who want to advance, who want to get the required academic credentials to lead this government if we continue to reduce this opportunity. And that is why I introduced the simple amendment. It's no different than the language for the nursing scholarship. It simply guarantees that there will be a specific amount of money made available for the scholarship for next fiscal year. And I ask my colleagues to please support it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator Guthrie. On the amendment by Senator Guthrie, which would be to add at the end of the word section in the first paragraph that no more, or the Doc Sanchez shall receive no less than $300,000 of the appropriation contained herein. All in favor of the Guthrie's amendment, please raise your hand. Is there any? Yeah? Yes. Right. Okay, so all in favor, please raise your hand. I'm waiting.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know we're voting, but the speaker has oversight over the Committee on Education, has some information that if this amendment were to pass, then the next challenge for the body would be then what other scholarship areas are we going to cut?
Right.
Yeah, and I'd like, yeah.
Yes. Yes, I did. Okay. So please, I'm going to call for the vote. On the amendment by Senator Guthertz, those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. The amendment carries. All right. We are now back to the Wampat amendment.
Mr. Chairman, as I told you guys earlier, is that by law there are no stipends, so the language has to be corrected here. That where it says the president of the university shall disperse the stipends, but rather maybe that to disperse these funds for this program, and specifically, I don't know how you want to do that, remove stipends for tuition, textbooks, and student fees. That's what the monies are used for. They're not used as stipends. That's the first amendment that I would like to offer.
Can we just make sure I follow that? On your amendment, you wanted to.
Where it says to disperse stipends, these are not stipends. So maybe it's to disperse these funds or these scholarships. So these funds for the Doc Sanchez Scholarship Program in accordance with this code annotated, and then to be used for tuition, textbooks, and student fees. No, it's there, but I'm just taking it out. Oh, well, so maybe am I reading a different?
You might be.
I'm reading this whole paragraph. Oh, it's different?
There were two that were passed out. Remember? The first one struck out ROTC,
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Regent.
Can we recess because we have that function at 5:30 with the Codell again, and get this in writing so we all know what we're talking about and start fresh in the morning on that?
Can we just finish this one?
Let's just finish this. No, I'm sorry. Can I get
Speaker
Wampat? The Guthertz amendment, there is an amendment that Senator Guthertz passed out, but she did not present this amendment. She presented a verbal amendment to add at the end of the word section, and the only language she added was that Pedro Doc Sanchez.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
so that was the only.
Okay, so that one's fine.
That one's fine.
Okay, however, now, all right, if that's the case, then I want to withdraw what it is that I had proffered earlier. But there is one amendment that I think is important because similar to the language that we put in that if a surplus exists, such remaining funds shall be distributed to other scholarship programs contained in subsection A of this section.
Okay.
Primarily because there are applicants that they're saying that they have have applied. There are 10 of them. It may not take the entire amount. So that you're right. So therefore, that if there is a surplus, the same language with all the other scholarships, that it also then go back to the other programs.
But I would think that with the language no less than would mean that if there are 10 scholarship recipients and that the 10 applicants are going to be awarded by the word no less than, if those 10 applicants are going to receive $200,000, then the $100,000 goes back into the pool because it doesn't mandate that $300 be spent on the amount. It just says that no less than $300,000. Yes.
Under in this program, they take new participants every semester. It's not a one-year thing. Every semester, they have applications for people to apply.
Right, but so the total amount would be for, I understand, right, not, okay?
But if we don't have, let's say that we, like right now there are 10 applicants, let's say, and that these 10 applicants at $5,000 per year, then that's, $50,000. So that will be less than the amount. And what I'm saying is that if there is a balance, that it should then go back to the other scholarships.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Mr. Speaker,
right.
Just to clarify, the reason there's probably 10, you're talking about 10 applicants, but they also have current participants, all right? So it's not just 10 people, 10 new people involved for the fall semester. You have all the folks that are in the program that are continuing in the program. And
Okay.
that's how they come up with the
right.
estimate.
Okay.
Now, also, I just want to remind everybody that one reason they may have fewer applicants is because they haven't been aggressive
All right.
in making the program known and available to the public sector.
All right. Okay, so that clarifies the amendment and the intent. Senator Speaker Wampat, I'm still recognizing you then.
So you're in essence saying that.
No, I'm not saying it. You may propose your
okay,
amendment if you
because
wish.
so that's exactly what I would like to propose is the same language that's in there. It's in the amendment that originally had passed, but to add it on specifically for this, that if a surplus exists, such remaining funds shall be distributed to fund other scholarship programs contained in subsection A of this section. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, is that because when they did the breakdown for the budget for this year, the dollar amount that they recommended, which is the $1,858, are for their current students in the program that would carry them through this year. The 10 additional that have new applicants, that's an additional $50,000. So that means then, in essence, they would only need then $150,000, but we're saying here is to give them no less than $300,000. So therefore, there will be an additional $150,000 that will be available. Unless, like Senator Guthrie said, they're going to go and actively recruit to use the entire amount.
Yeah, there was no objection to the amendment you presented.
Thank
All
you
right?
very much.
So the Wampat amendment passes. Now we are on the amendment as amended. And any objections to the amendment as amended? No objections. Amendment carries. That any additional discussion on Section 2A?
Yes, I do. I brought this up earlier, and when we were in recess, and I know I had brought it up that I needed to have legal counsel prepare it, and the amendment is to reduce the total amount in Section 2 of Part 4 UOG Chapter 2 by $60,000, and then increase the amount in Section 1 of Part 3 Chapter 2 under the category regular salary by $60,000, and that was for the Education Certification Office.
Okay. Any objections to the amendment? No objections? The amendment carries. Any additional discussion on Section 2A? If not, I'd like to just go with Section 2B, and then once we complete this, we'll recess. Section 2B is the appropriation for the Dr. Antonio C. Yamashita Educator Corps. The amount being presented is $1,238,127. Speak. 1 million. I'm sorry. 1 million. Speaker Wampat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is exactly the same old discussion that we just had for the other scholarships, which was going to try to bring everything uniform. I do have this amendment that was passed out to everyone, actually bringing it also down to the 10% again of total appropriation for administrative costs, and then bringing the awards, making it all uniform as well for the first year, second year students, third and fourth year students, exactly that of the merit scholarship. And then in addition, most recently that we passed a couple of years ago, or two legislatures ago, to include now for the counselor program and the school principal program, is to also provide the same uniform stipends that will be given. So it's bringing all the scholarships now in line. They will all be uniform.
Senator Speaker Wampat? Is it in writing? Okay. All right. All right. So on the amendment, any discussion? No discussion? Any objections? No objections? The amendment carries. We've just concluded section 2A and B. We have a CODEL delegation reception again at the invitation of our delegate, and that is at the Two Lovers Point, and we will recess then until tomorrow at 9 a.m., at which time we will pick up our discussion on Chapter 2, Part 4, Section 3. This Committee of the Whole is in recess. Thank you very much. Sidus Masih.